Elon Musk just said his scheduled time with Doge is over, and now he's refocusing on his companies. But get this, a group of pension funds that own just 0.25% of Tesla are demanding Elon work 40 hours a week at Tesla. Seriously? We do need to note the power of institutions owning shares is now at 57.6% of the float. Meanwhile, China has 169 EV automakers. Most of them are walking dead, with more than half having less than 0.1% share. Stellantis just swapped CEOs. GM bailed on EVs and is doubling down with $888 million to make more V8 engines. The world's changing fast, and only Tesla looks ready for what's next. Let's talk about power, distraction, and why Elon's return to focus might come at the perfect time. And we've got Larry Goldberg here today. Larry, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks, Herbert. Yeah, so these pension fund investors, quote unquote, are really not pension fund investors. They're progressive activists, political activists. You know, Randy Weingartner, who's the head of the American Federation of Teachers, who is very active, an absolute activist. You know, Brad Lander, the head of the New York City Pension Fund, the Oregon State Pension Fund. And so, yeah, but they make up a trivial amount of Tesla shares. They have very little impact on Tesla shares. They probably voted against Elon's pay package, which means that they're part of the reason that he hasn't been paid. And they are demanding that he works for 80 hours. 40 hours a week. Now, what's a joke about that is that, you know, somebody asked, I think it was actually Omar asked, why would they want him to reduce his hours?
Yeah, it was Jeff. Jeff said that, 40 hours is already reducing his hours.
Yeah. Well, but Omar also said the same. You think he limits himself to 40 hours a week. Bottom line is, these are activists who are trying to score political points. Yeah. That's it. They have absolutely no skin in the game of any consequence. You know, so clearly, the idea that we can determine how many hours, we shareholders can determine how many hours Elon should work is completely mindless. When we think about how many years he's worked there at no pay, how much he commits to the company, how many hours in excess of 40 hours a week he's already accumulated, you know, and has in credit in the bank. I mean, all of that just makes this kind of stuff just, you know, they're posing, they're posers.
Yeah. It's interesting, especially the timing. They're doing this right when Elon's already saying that he's, getting out. But it is political, so we do have to talk about this. Elon posted this, and he said, "As my scheduled time as special government employee comes to an end, I would like to thank President Trump for the opportunity to reduce wasteful spending. The Doge mission will only strengthen over time as it becomes a way of life throughout the government." So he said that. At the same time, you've got. He did also say this. I think I probably did spend a bit too much time on politics. It's less than people would think because the media is going to overrepresent any political stuff because political bones and contention get a lot of traction in the media, just like you said. It's not like I left the companies. It was just relative time allocation that probably was a little too high on the government side. So he did say that. Let's watch what he said here.
So, I was disappointed to see the massive spending bill, frankly, which increases the budget deficit, not just decrease it, and undermines the work that the Doge team is doing.
I actually thought that when this big, beautiful bill came along. I mean, everything he's done on Doge gets wiped out in the first year.
I think a bill can be big or it can be beautiful, but I don't know if it can be both. My personal opinion.
And then, so people are taking that comment as if now there's a rift between Trump and Elon, and that's not the case. But you want to speak to that?
They're going to try very hard, but I don't think they're going to succeed very far. Look, the reality is, we saw Senator Johnson, in the All-In interview.
Mm-hmm.
We saw how disappointed he was that the Doge adjustments and the Doge method hadn't been employed, to change the bill or to revolutionize, if you like, the budgeting process. And he's still trying to enforce that. And there's been a new bill introduced by another set of senators to try and figure out how to implement Doge into law. The problem with Doge is that it's a presidential decree. It's set up by presidential decree, and so it can be changed by the next president, and it can be, challenged in law and all the above. However, if they actually instantiate Doge into law by Congress and the president signs off with it, that would be the most powerful solution. I'm hopeful that something like that would happen during the course of this administration.
So this is, let's get back to that original story that we did talk about, Tesla Investors, which is this pension fund. They're demanding Elon work 40 hours a week as a crisis build. So it's a group of pension fund leaders, long-term investments, Tesla. They want Elon to work at least 40 hours a week. They're saying Tesla's facing a crisis because of Musk's absence and a board that appears unwilling to act in the best interest of all Tesla holders. So it's just a letter that they sent to this group, a letter from a group sent to Robin Denholm and the board. They want him to work a minimum 40 hours per week. I don't know if, as a condition of any new compensation plan they may arrange for him, they want a clear succession plan for management of the e-business and a policy that would apply to all Tesla directors, limiting their outside board commitments of public and private companies. So they signed this letter. They only have 7.9 million shares. Like we said earlier, this is pro-labor SOC Investment Group, American Federation of Teachers, New York City Comptroller Brad Landner, and Oregon State Treasurer Elizabeth Steiner were the ones who signed that letter. This is what you said. This is bogus. The pension fund investors are led by these people, right? And then they are woke warriors. Together, this group don't even total 3% of stock. Probably voted against
0.3%, by the way.
0.3%. Okay. Yeah. So that's what you said. And then, Jeff Lutz made fun. 40 hours. They want him to reduce his hours. This is the letter, the Financial Times report. And Alexander Mertz said that's 0.25% of shareholders, 0.3%. Yeah. Thoughts on that? I know you commented already. Yeah.
It's a joke. I mean, I'd be interested to know whether these pension fund holders voted against the pay package. Pretty sure they did. I mean, my gut tells me that they did. So it's bogus. It's bogus.
I wanted to bring it up though, because yes, this one is bogus. It's a pension fund, but it's very political. It's very strategic, right? They're all going to play, but institutional ownership does matter, and we do need their votes. So what will happen as we move forward here? This guy James Stevens pointed out that institutions as a whole barely make over 50%. That number is not actually true, and the number invested is dropping. So you can see here the percentage of shares held by institutions. It jumped to now 50.6%, right? So that 50.6% is what's held by but the percentage of float held by institutions is around 57%. That's percentage of shares. That's the percentage of float. So Alexandra pointed out that this chart is interesting. Institutions are now 57.6% of the float, not if you don't include Elon and other insiders. In certain terms of votes, in voting for certain items on a proxy, Elon and Kimball, for example, must step down, not vote. But the number of institutions goes down. Looks like lots of smaller ones have sold. So my point just being that yes, this was a pension fund, only owned 0.25%, but the institutions is growing. They're swaying.
I look at the institutional vote from the last shareholders meeting, and I'm very encouraged that the institutions that currently own stock in Tesla are long-term supporters of Elon Musk. That's what I think matters. And so those institutions that don't support Elon Musk, that come with these kinds of nonsensical demands, and I say nonsensical because if you think about all the work that Elon does outside of Tesla, all of that benefits Tesla immensely. So I take it all with a pinch of salt, and I don't give a fig about what they say about Elon Musk.
Okay. Let's see what happens. That's where we're at right now with Elon making that announcement. He's focused back on Tesla. In the meantime, Chinese automakers are struggling. Stellantis is swapping their CEOs. GM is still focusing on gas cars.
Refocusing on gas cars.
Refocusing, what?
They're increasing their focus on gas.
They're increasing their focus, yeah. So this is all happening at the same time that Elon is actually focused back on Tesla. And, I did a show already about BYD's announcement that they're cutting prices up to 34% for 22 of their 40 plus vehicles. They have to do that because, well, you have to ask yourself why, but the competition in China has increased. Now, their segment that they're in, their average sales price of their cars is $19,000. So anybody out there saying BYD is cutting prices, watch out, Tesla. Well, it's not a direct comparison. But in China, I wanted to point out a couple more points I haven't brought up in previous episodes. Omar pointed this out. This actually is a quote from the chairman of Great Wall China, which is one of the largest Chinese automakers. He said, of the 169 automakers operating in China today, more than half have less than 0.1% market share. This is data coming from Tieto Dynamics. The crowded field is reminiscent of the US auto sector in the early 20th century, when more than 100 companies vied with big players such as Ford before the industry consolidated. So this is part of it. Just watch out. There's a bloodbath. There's a price war going on in China right now. But more than half, that's less than 0.1%. Many of them will just consolidate, be gone, die, merge. At the same time, this is what the Great Wall Motors chairman said. He said that, look, some products have already been reduced by 220,000 yuan to 120 in the past few years. Like it's already halved without naming companies. What kind of industrial products can be reduced by 100,000 yuan and still have quality assurance? I think he's referring to supply chain stuff. You divide it by 7 to get to, the price point that we're talking about here. Yeah. Or cars, right? So that's...
Look, Warren Buffett famously said that only when the tide goes out do you see who's been swimming naked. And so I think we're going to see some real travails in the auto industry. We do know that China has been profitable for Tesla up to now and probably continues to be so. We do know that if you look at the BYD balance sheet, you see extreme anomalies. And I pointed this out 2.5 years ago when I first looked at BYD, and I think it was on your show. When I first looked at the BYD balance sheet, I was shocked, truly shocked, not by their gross margin, which seemed to be healthy enough, not by their R&D expenditure, which seemed to be healthy enough, but by their gross corporate overhead, which exceeded by far. I mean, it was like 3 times that of Tesla's, literally 3 times. Now, how you can run an auto company under those conditions, I don't know. And how did they pay for it? By government subsidy, direct payment by government, subsidizing that overhead. At what point, does that get to a point where the government says no more? I mean, this is like the auto industry in Japan is like the property market in Japan was 5 years ago. And I think we're going to see a huge meltdown. And the government is going to have to take over BYD because BYD has grown into a monster. I mean, Jeff Lutz will teach us how BYD is failing to pay its vendors. Oh, sorry, they are paying their vendors, just 9 months late. I mean, how does a company survive on tiny margins? The auto supply industry runs on tiny margins. How does it survive when it gets paid 9 months late? Do they go to the government and say, please pay the interest on this loan? Please give me a loan for this amount. And at what point does the government say, all right, guys, uncle? So this is a really bad situation. The problem is it's very, very, very tough for Tesla because this is the most profitable operation they've got. And they have to meet this competition. And they do it by just making outstanding vehicles, and really delivering on their promises in the vehicles. So there's still that component of the auto market that will continue to buy Teslas. It's just that the volume is going to be depressed for a while.
Yeah. It's what we're just pointing out is story after story of other automakers and what they're dealing with, right? we've also reported that Nissan is trying to sell their headquarters because they're in death's door. They tried to merge with Honda. That broke up. And then you've got another
Stellantis.
company that fired more people. Volvo fired more people.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah. So,
There are
I mean,
so
these are
many
all
dead-
happening.
There are so many dead men walking in the auto industry. And, that's why 3 years ago,
Yeah.
Elon made the decision completely independently of his management, said, I am not in the auto industry anymore. And he had a hard time with his management. You read Isaacson's book, and Isaacson, the famous story about the dinner party where they all try to get him to go ahead and build another, new model. And, he agreed, but we see now he didn't agree. We see now that he's fixed on the cybercab. And the result is he called it right.
He's brilliant. Yep. Timing. It's so the that was my point, that you got all these companies that are already struggling with EVs. Just wait once, autonomy comes. What do you do then? You don't have money anymore to invest in that. So here's what's happening.
Tells us that everybody's going to have autonomy, so you shouldn't worry about it.
We'll see. Don't think so. You got Stellantis announced a new CEO. His name is Tony Filosa. Widely anticipated he would be the chosen one. So he led Stellantis in North and South America. He was CFO. He was chief CEO. He's been here forever. So he started his career.
Stellantis in North America, I would fire his ass.
Good point. 25-year veteran of the company is the new chief executive officer. Just FYI, people should know.
Stellantis RIP.
That's actually a good point. The fact that they picked this guy, well, I mean, yeah, it's more of the same. If this is the case, if this is his background, he's been here forever. COO, chief quality officer. He's been here forever.
Think about what's happened to the Jeep brand.
Yeah,
Think about what's happened to Stellantis in general. Think about who stuffed the pipeline with inventory in the last year just to keep sales looking good. Who was it?
Yeah.
The head of the North America. I mean, good grief, fire his ass.
Yep, they gave him a promotion.
Well, of course.
So it's just more of the same.
It's the Peter principle. Here is a living example.
Yeah, exactly. So here's one weird. So that's GM, fine, or Stellantis. They got their new CEO, fine. GM, what the friggin' are they doing? They're supposed to be leaders of EVs, and here we are.
Mary, she led.
So they abandoned a plan to pump $300 million into electric vehicle motor production at its upstate New York plant, and will instead invest $880 million to make the latest V8 engines. Whoa. Okay. Well, I mean, this is it. They're going to produce the 5th generation engine, prepares to start production of the new engines in 2027. Yeah.
Well, it's great. It's great. I mean, talk about walking into a trap. All right. Let's see how they do in that.
Oh, brother. So that's basically, what we're seeing here. Story after story after story of what these other automakers are doing.
That story is very interesting because it talks about GM wishing to, replenish its American brand. Who are they kidding? GM only makes money in America.
Yeah.
Where else they make money? Those few geographies that they make a little bit of money, it doesn't shift the balance sheet. It doesn't shift the P&L one bit. It's all in the United States, and it's all in trucks. How long has GM got? Honestly, the government will bail them
so,
out again.
I want to bring it back to the first story of Elon Musk. We all know that the way he's been working with Tesla and all of his companies, first of all, he's amazing. There's no CEO that could accomplish what he's doing, even with the guy that's really running 6 companies, then added Doge. But what he does is there is a really big issue. He comes in and he focuses on that issue, make sure that there's no negative outcome from that, but also does things like the XAI where they only can do 30,000 GPUs at a time. He made it to be able to, invent something that makes it go to 100,000. That's the kind of stuff he does. Now he's back and he said, I need to be back right now because I need to focus on critical technologies. And he's referring to all his companies. But one example would be Tesla. We're now about to launch autonomy. What does that mean for Tesla, that he's kind of like got time and he's going to focus, and he's driven now, by the way, because he said that, he's realized now that the only way to save America is not to cut costs, but to grow GDP. To grow GDP, the way to do that is robots and autonomy. So he's really now driven with a fire to accelerate it even more.
Yeah, I'm not one to subscribe to the idea that, while he was in government, things went badly, and now that he's back, things are going to change.
Yeah.
I think Elon sets parameters, sets direction based upon his view of what great product design looks like, and make sure that people keep focused on the target, and from time to time adjust the target. Not time to time, he actually adjusts the target quite often. So, I know that the narrative is he's returned back and he's focused, and Dan Ives definitely adopted that particular paradigm. I'm less convinced by it all. I've been very comfortable for the last year. I was very comfortable the last 6 months while he was at Doge. I feel that they're marching to the tune that he really laid down the law on almost 3 years ago now. We all went to the Investor Day and we all listened to Investor Day, and they were marching to that tune. Sometime after Investor Day, some moment in time, Elon saw the future and realized that, the window had shifted. And as it shifted, he realized he's got to change direction. We only saw the result of that change of direction when we read Isaacson's book. We all thought we were going to Mexico, we were going to make a new model, we were going to then open a plant in India, perhaps, or in Indonesia, or Thailand, and blah, 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 blah. And we were heading towards 20 million cars a year. And we didn't see the shift. We didn't understand the shift. We didn't even read it properly in the Isaacson book. But he's executing to that shift. And in my view, whether he spends 1 hour at Tesla or 100 hours at Tesla every week, he understands what he's doing, and he can read the company as a whole to understand whether they're pursuing that shift. So it's just my view, but
yeah,
I may be wrong.
I think you articulate it really, really well. So let me give you my perspective of what we're saying here is that Elon, he doesn't need to spend 80 hours at a company because he's not the guy that's going to be this, the factory manager. We got those people running the business really, really well. Where you want him is sometimes there's the fires. That's when he's busy. But when he's now back, what you will see now is very much what you saw with what you talk about, some really big mission, big goal, something that's going to revolutionize everything all over again. Maybe it is the terawatt of hour power.
He's
the terawatt hour. Yeah.
He's announced
sustainable abundance, right? Mm-hmm. Sustainable abundance, impact to GDP.
And to achieve that goal, he's already stated that he needs a terawatt of power.
Yeah. This is what he's going to focus on. So we're going to hear new businesses is what I'm saying. It's not just, we're going to go and of course, he needs to focus on the companies to make sure that there's no negative things that come out of it, ensure success. But then he's thinking big. And we're going to get even something bigger.
Here's the interesting feature. A terawatt of power is going to require so much capital that it's likely it's going to be a seventh company.
Oh,
and
interesting.
Then we're going to get the bleatings from the woke mob.
Yeah.
They see an opportunity to attack him. They're going to attack him because he's putting his time into this other company.
Right.
But they don't realize that other company is going to deliver to Tesla what Tesla needs so badly, and that's power, energy. So, that's where his head is. His head is not on the factory floor. His head is not on the robotaxi. That's a done deal. And he's got brilliant people who are doing that. Anyway, that's just my
That's
thought.
Brilliant, Larry. That's the first time you heard it here. Is it going to be a separate company? Oh man, it kind of sounds like it. It might be, yeah.
Musk Energy. I don't know what we'll call it, and he doesn't really like to name his companies by his own name, but X Energy, I don't know.
Right. Love it. Thank you so much, Larry. That was fantastic. This is great. Again, perfect person. You know Elon very, very well. All these things we just talked about, you know it very well. Thank you. Follow Larry on his X account, Tesla Larry. Thanks, everybody. Bye, everybody. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.